caveat or disclaimer or whatever, when you talk about things that are deep within our psyche, another word for that might be our mind, our awareness. When you start talking about things like that, it can push buttons or cause triggers or bring up feelings or thoughts or emotions that are uncomfortable or difficult to deal with. So I just wanted to say that. So if anyone is triggered, including myself, we can say something, or just in confidence come and talk to me after the class, or if you have a caseworker there, which I assume that you do, talk to them as well. But I guess the first port of call is definitely speak with me, because I wouldn't even be bringing this up as a subject, and Anne's obviously chosen it as a subject, if there wasn't some previous experience. And for me personally, it goes back decades and decades. So I'm not superficial about what this subject matter that we're about to speak about. So is that okay? You all right with that, Graham?
Yeah.
And Anne, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So why don't you say what you've got to say about it, Anne, from your experience?
Okay. Well, to be honest, I didn't do a great deal of research, and I've been a bit off tap the last few days, so I kind of left it all to the last minute.
That's all right.
I'm good. But so I just wrote down what I believe what psyche is.
That's good. That's the best.
Yeah, and for me, I think that aspect of ourselves. It's I'm just going to read what I've written. I believe a person's psyche is the part of them that is unseen. So it's not something that you see in the physical world, I don't believe. I mean, well, you can see aspects of it. It relates to the spirit. I believe it is the soul of all human beings as well as all living beings. Like anything I believe everything has a psyche that's breathing, you know. And we have a physical body, and I think we have an unphysical body. So, like, I'm very much into, I have a very strong belief about what, you know, the energy body that we have. So our chakras and things like that. And which is really what I focus mostly on with this particular subject, because I think it's important. I think it's a subject that doesn't get discussed enough in recovery about, like, there's so much focus on the physical self, and I believe that, you know, talking about how we feel emotionally and our belief system and all that is all tied in with the psyche. But I think there needs to be more focus on our energy body, which is our chakras. And
that is so sweet. That's great. Thank you for actually. You just carry on, but I just want to interject and just say thanks, because that's an area that I also think is extremely important. Our energy body, absolutely. Yeah. It's just it's interesting how to integrate that into an evidence-based program, a course. But I'm up for it. So thank you for saying that. Thank you. And maybe we can, maybe if you get a chance too, as you go on or afterwards, I don't know if Graham, are you familiar with what Anne's talking about? The energy body, the chakras and things like that?
I've heard chakras before. Yeah. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. A lot of people are really familiar with it. Which, look, even my children don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about it. So I'm in the process of sending them information, and because I just think it's so important.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to flag that, the energy body, and I may actually add that to that nice little mandala thing I've got there on mindfulness. So and maybe we can elucidate that a little bit for Graham, maybe over next week or over the next few weeks. Or if, even
Well,
if you've got something there now, go for it. Yeah.
I do, because I think it, like, you mention the energetic body and chakras, and then you don't sort of explain a little bit, then people have really got no idea what you're talking about.
Go for it.
So I wrote down the 7 chakras and just a brief description of each one and what they represent. And, and to be honest, I used to think that the chakras were from top to toe. So number 1 up here, 2, and in actual fact, it's the other way around. So you start at the base, which is the root chakra, which is, and that's located, and this is outside of the body, Graham. So if you can, you know, if you've seen that picture with the colours, balls, like 7 balls along the body, so they're the chakras, but they're outside of the body. We can't see them, but they're there. So, and you start at the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine, and that represents survival, safety, and grounding. So it connects to Mother Earth. So if you've got good nutrition, and this is how it all ties in with the physical body. So if you've got good nutrition and exercise and you're getting good sleep, then your root chakra is usually clear. And when I say clear, I mean it's because, you know, it picks up debris. The chakras pick up like bits of debris along the way, and you can get blocked. You can have blocked chakras. So,
how do they
if you have
debris?
Okay, so for example, with the root chakra, it can be blocked by stress. You know, so if you have an excess of stress in your life, and it kind of prevents you from feeling, well, it kind of makes you feel the opposite of what it's meant the chakra represents. So it says survival, safety, and grounding. So if you've got a lot of stress in your life, then I mean, nothing feels stable. You know, things don't feel stable. And the whole idea of that particular, I mean, the root chakra is really important in meditation as well, when you ground, so that it's almost like you're preparing to do an exercise to help clean the chakras. And I think that's a good place to start, is at the I'm getting that impression anyway from meditations, that they start at the root and get you to ground before you, you know, with any exercise of clearing or cleaning out debris, spiritual debris, or, you know, like, I think what happens, the impact of what happens to us physically affects our chakras, in my opinion. Okay.
Can you just explain for Graham and myself the notion of, you've said it a couple of times, the notions of if a chakra gets blocked. So presumably that notion implies that that's something that's affecting us in some way, perhaps negatively or not optimally.
That's correct. That's correct. So if you have an excess of stress, well, then you're not feeling stable, you know, like, because it also impacts on the rest of your chakra system. Like, it's like you can't go to the gym and you can't work out on your abs and expect to have a great ass. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you just, but it's true. You have to work on all of your body if you want an all-over result. So, and it's the same with the chakras. There's a little bit of maintenance involved in keeping them functioning well and well balanced. And same with the body, you know. So if you have a balance of good nutrition and exercise, and emotionally you're able to express yourself, and so all of those chakras represent different areas of your body, and various things can affect those, you know. And I think if your chakras are blocked, then usually it's a direct result of something that's going on in the physical world that's affecting your chakras.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
And I don't believe there's anything in the physical world unless it's evil.
Maybe just to bring in psyche to that statement that you just said, would I be correct? I'm letting you explain about the chakras. Yeah. Would I be correct? You made the point that if something in the physical world is not right, well, then it's going to affect the chakra. But is it also possible that in the nature of the psyche that we're going to be talking about also is in the realm of spirit and mind and intellect and all that. So would it be correct to say, I'm trying to tie in psyche and the chakras here, would it be correct to say that if something wasn't right, or if something was erupting in the world of the psyche, that it could also affect these chakras that you're talking about?
Well, I believe so.
Right.
I think, I think it's all, I think it's very closely connected to the physical and vice versa.
Okay.
I think I don't think you can have one without the other, kind of thing. And so there has to be a balance in both, and it requires ongoing maintenance. I mean, it's not something that, you know, like, I mean, I struggle with motivation to do things that I'm not really, like, you know, a good example is meditation.
Yeah.
Like, I struggle with meditation, but I'm starting to feel the benefits of practicing meditation, and not just quieting. I mean, you have to quieten the mind to meditate. I'm learning, but I'm finding I'm feeling the benefits from meditating. In particular, anything to do with the chakras. When I'm meditating in a guided meditation, because I'm not very good at doing it on my own, but if someone is guiding me through a meditation where it's clearing the chakras, I can feel the difference after. I feel lighter.
Great.
Like, yeah.
So you use visualization in that process of meditation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are meditations you can go to sleep listening to for 8 hours that clear the chakras, and I don't think my phone would hold up that long, and I certainly don't have earplugs in all night. But I mean, I just do a brief one every other day, if not every day, at the moment.
Okay.
And there are certain, you know, some people don't know which chakras need attention. I mean, in the physical world, you can look at your body and say, okay, well, you know, that needs a bit of work. But with the chakras, it's a bit different, because you can't see the blockages. You can feel them, you know, like, and I'll explain with the chakras, because each chakra represents a different aspect of our physical reality, kind of thing. It ties in with and how our physical reality can impact on the chakras. And so, and you can do tests to find out what chakras are blocked and which ones you should focus on in unblocking them. You know, so not every meditation is about doing all of the chakras.
Sure.
Like when you go to the gym, you don't necessarily work on all of the body either. But,
could you give us an example, Anne, of another chakra, and perhaps, if you can, how the physical world interacts perhaps with that chakra, and then what are the consequences perhaps of having that chakra blocked and then unblocked, if you can do that?
Okay. Sure. Well, my understanding of the root chakra, and I don't have a huge understanding of the chakras, I'm still learning, but I recently did a test to get an idea of where I was blocked in my chakras. And the root chakra is because it's your base chakra, and it represents connecting to Mother, so grounding. And if you have an imbalance of good nutrition, exercise and sleep, which I definitely had a really shocking imbalance of that when I came in here, but it impacts on your ability to, for example, manifest the things that you desire. I mean, what I would love for myself is to be drug-free and happy, but if your root chakra is blocked, then chances are things aren't moving. If you understand what I mean, you sort of remain
that brings up a really interesting question. That's probably relevant to most of humanity and us. In that is, I'm just trying to transpose what you're talking about into other aspects of life, and one aspect is addiction. So, is there a notion within the chakras that can more correlate directly with addiction and then help with that?
I haven't seen addiction come up.
Okay.
To be honest, and I think Well, I mean, we'll go through. Well, you know, probably. I mean, if as I look down here, I'm seeing words like powerlessness and you know, not being able to speak your truth with the, you know, if I'll go through the chakras. So
okay, which that's really good. What's the chakra that talks about powerlessness and speaking?
Okay.
Which one's that?
Powerless. That would be your solar plexus. So that one is and this one is so it's about trusting your gut. It represents fire, so trusting in yourself, so having confidence. And if it's blocked, it says powerlessness. You may have difficulty in taking action on your desires. So you might have these desires, but actually putting one foot in front of the other, you know. So look, people talk about the law of attraction, okay? And I think the law of attraction works when you put one foot in front of the other and go in the direction of your desires. So when you actually physically do something to help you get to what it is that you desire, then I think the law of attraction comes into play, because you're thinking about it, you're putting it into action.
Sure.
When you're in addiction, like, I mean, the same can be said for addiction, really. Like I found, for me personally, it wasn't too much of a struggle for me to find drugs every day, because it was all I thought about. You know, it was all consuming, and therefore what I was thinking, it was coming to me. Like I was finding it relatively easy.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said for coming out of addiction. Like if you have the right mindset and you're determined and you put one foot in front of the other, then like attracts like. So hopefully you'll draw into your life the things that, but in regards to causing addiction, I don't believe there's any one particular chakra that you can clear or unblock that will help you not struggle in addiction. I think it's a combination of all of them.
Yeah, maybe an evolutionary principle.
Part of us. Yeah. And I mean, I think all of your chakras can, at varying degrees, be blocked. Like maybe your heart chakra is open and you can love and love easily and accept love, and but if there is another chakra that isn't maybe clear, you know, it just creates imbalance. I think that it's really important that this whole balance thing, I'm starting to realise, is really, really important, not to have an excess of things. So addiction is an excessive, that's excessively, it's very self-destructive, and it's to the extreme for addicts. You know, I don't know why that is, and possibly there is a chakra that's greatly affected, that impacts on people's desire to want to self-medicate. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at it.
What about for yourself? What pushed
myself
towards ice, for instance?
A lot of guilt and shame. I think my personal experience with addiction, I grew up in a family of addicts, so it was very normal for me. For me, it was a very normal way it was a coping mechanism that was kind of taught without actually teaching it. So I believe as a child, when you're growing up, you live what you learn. So, and for me, I grew up surrounded by people who took pills or drank excessively.
Was that your parents?
My parents, my grandparents, you know, and cousins and uncles and aunts. The addiction is quite rampant in my family. So
how have you got? So how do you going to go beyond that? Do you think, for yourself, just bringing it back to yourself? What's going to be required?
Well, for me personally, as I've gotten older, I mean, when I was a bit younger and I came into recovery, I held a lot of resentment. I put it on my parents. You know, my parents are responsible for how I am. They taught me to be this way, and it then just became a natural coping mechanism for me. So I've just taken on what I've learned. It's comfortable. Like, that's comfortable for me, you know.
So what's going to free you from that? that cycle, that pattern, that
Well,
what is the,
well,
if there was one word that you could come up with that would liberate you from that cycle, do you know what it would be?
well, I think first of all, I'm not sure.
Can I be so bold as to say something? Only because I've been listening to everything you've been saying, and you've said something twice. So when someone, I've been trained, I have to do this because when I work with clients, so you have to listen, and because people tell their own story. You tell your own story, but sometimes you don't know the import of your own story. You don't pick up the actual cues and clues and triggers along the way. You're so used to telling the story, both to yourself and to even to others, that it's all just seems so normal. And it doesn't appear that there's any way of breaking through that narrative to actually think, well, I'm going to do something different now. I'm going to do something unique. But I don't really know how to cut those chains that bind me to my constant narrative, my historical narrative that's been going on in my life.
Well, I don't still blame my parents. I have
that's
to say
the word,
that.
blame. So that's what I was going to say. So,
I mean, I would even take it a step further, and I won't get into it right now, but because I believe I'm fortunate that throughout my very early days, so when I was up until I was a teenager, there were certain people placed in my path who I believe were deliberately placed in my path, who showed me other ways of living, so to speak, who went above and beyond to try and educate me, to show me that this isn't normal and this isn't how the whole world functions. So, and there are, people don't self-medicate to cope with all of their emotions. And so that was kind of shown to me in snippets as I was a child. And I held on to those because I liked the environments that I saw that didn't have alcohol and drugs in it. So, and I yearned for that, and yet I couldn't have it because I was in my own family environment. But I would look at other people outside of myself, and I remembered, that they lived better, their lives were better. They sat around the table and ate a meal together at night, which didn't happen in my house. People ate when they were hungry, and they all sat around the television. And
I remember you saying, I think it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, in relation to that just before you came here. And I don't mean just to pick on you, but there's only 3 of us here, so there isn't much choice to have a conversation. But one of the things was that there was some aspect of the environment that you were in just before you came here that in some ways was conducive to taking drugs, in some ways, whatever that was. So the question I'm asking you, and you don't have to say anything about it now, it's just to reflect upon, and this goes into the deeper aspects of the psyche. It really does. And that's, I don't think it's an accident that you have picked that one word out of the 20 or 30 words that were on that picture that I drew there, because it's like you were talking about the laws of attraction. If you want to be whole, and let's just assume that we all want, be complete, be content, be connected with a force that's greater than ourselves, that's actually benevolent, that's actually good for us, not evil. So then there's that, and you might say that emanates from your own soul. That is part of your soul. That is part of that quest, that yearning, that longing that comes through you, so you can fulfill this life here while you're here, alive, for you, starting with you, not necessarily for the rest of humanity. Then, if you have any notion that might actually be true, well, then pay attention to yourself. In other words, the fact that you've chosen what we're going to actually talk about right now, that we're talking about. And so I guess what I'm asking you to do too, Otherwise, I have to be aware that we don't remove the context of what we're talking about from ourselves too far. So it becomes almost philosophical or rhetorical or that. And then, well, what's it all been for? You know, what are the classes for? What's this time while I'm here at Freeman House? What's it for? What has it really done to help change me? You know what I mean? And I guess I'm coming back to sort of, well, what's my role? My role is to listen, to pay attention. So what I'm asking you to do is to reflect upon the last thing, the last situation you found yourself in before you came here, and reflect on it within the context of these classes and yourself, of course, and what you're thinking about and what you're reading about. And hopefully in the next, because we're certainly not going to get through the whole subject of psyche today. That is not going to happen. Even though I haven't even got any slides prepared, I've got some notes prepared, but the conversation and what we're talking about, and even though Graham may not be saying much, part of him is listening every now and then to what's going on. And hopefully Graham is included in this. And again, there's probably no accident in that. If he's courageous enough to bring his ass and sit down here and be a part of this, hopefully he'll get some benefit from it as well. So anyway, so I'm just, every now and then I'll just interject, and that's just what I'm asking you to do. Because that is the most recent relevant point, or recent relevant awakening, you might say, for yourself. Just so you can perhaps break out of that cycle. That's just what I'm trying to say. And,
well, honestly, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've had a bit of a taste of both worlds. I mean, I grew up in that environment, and then I created an environment that was totally the opposite. So I tried to raise my children in an environment where there were no drugs and alcohol, where there was an addiction flowing through, you know, every crack of the wall of the house. And then I slipped back into addiction, and you know, very quickly ended up in a family that resembled my own family to some extent, like not to that extent, but to a great extent.
So it's like a mirror. What you're saying, it's almost like, well, you know, and we're going to be talking about Carl Jung a little bit, because he was 100 years ago, he was instrumental in helping us develop some understanding of the psyche, the human psyche. And I've got some material there to show. But he said, one of his, and I'm just paraphrasing, it's not word for word. He said that what we don't acknowledge and become conscious of in our own life, in our own psyche, within ourselves and our deeper aspect, will eventuate as fate. It will manifest itself in the outside world. You could say, and in that, and we would call that, wow, that's a coincidence. That's funny how that, but according to him, it's not a coincidence. That's how powerful the workings of our psyche are. In other words, you know, that notion that we're really looking for help from the universe, but we don't even know what to ask for. We're completely clueless on so many levels. So, you know, and that, go on.
That it is changing though. I think there's coming a point in I mean, right now where, I mean, look, you only have to get on Facebook and see the various groups, and then you've got ones that are just love and light and promoting love and sending out love, and it's all about love and acceptance and don't be judgmental, and then you've got another group that is just, there's a lot of hate and a lot of judgment, and people are angry, but I look, and I can only go by what I've learned, and I take what I feel is true, and I hang on to that, and the rest I let go. I let go of.
That's fine.
Some of it's just too much, but I do believe that for whatever reason, and I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, I went back into a situation that I have to say at the beginning I didn't know would resemble my own family quite as it did. And as I said, my family wasn't quite that extreme, but there was a reason why I went back, and I believe that we have lessons. So, I mean, I would go a step further, and because it resonates with me when I've heard it and read it and heard about it, I believe that, you know, I'm not here by mistake. And I even believe that there's a lot of talk out there about how we choose our lives, and we even choose our parents before we come into this incarnation and things like that. And I strongly believe that I chose my own family for a reason. There were things I needed to learn so that I could progress spiritually, whatever that is. I don't know exactly what that is. I can say that within my family, even though I was also addicted to substances, I was the black sheep kind of thing. When I say black sheep, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that I was, for whatever reason, able to look. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that I love my abusers, but there was always, I tried to understand why. I always was seeking to understand why did this happen. Yeah. And, you know, and with that understanding, with education and understanding, I came to a place where it was like, I'm not angry. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel like this happened to me. I felt like I had to learn something from that experience, and their life path is different to mine. I could very well be living their life path in the next life, who knows? But the thing is, look, I've always felt an abundance of love coming from within me, regardless of shitty things that have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
No?
Okay, well, let's use that as a springboard. You brought up a key word there, and it's called love. And we can come back to you, but obviously we will. But can I just to provide some more universal context and just stay within the theme of psyche? Let me just, because you've just made a really nice segue. Segue means a nice little, you know, connection to something that ties in with the overall context. Now, are you all right with that if we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, there's many aspects of this whole. Can you guys still see me? Because for some reason your screen at that end has sort of locked up. You look.
No,
you can see me. Am I still moving?
Yeah. On and off.
On and off.
On and off. Yeah, it must have slowed down a little bit, the connection, but that's all right. It'll come back. As long as we can still hear each other, I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah.
You can still hear me. All right, just yell out. Of course, I won't hear you if you can't hear me, Matt, perhaps, but if you can't hear me, just yell out. So, Anne, did you get a chance to look at psyche on the internet in relation to Greek mythology?
Oh, I didn't. No.
Okay, all right. Well, I will bring that up because I find this. Now, here's another thing. Hopefully, Graham, you've got a chance amongst all of this to talk something about yourself or to bring something up that's relevant for yourself. But just before I give you an opportunity to do that, I'm just going to, and you don't have to say anything, but I've noticed something about you, Graham, if you don't mind me saying this, that you're often slow to start off speaking about something, but when you start speaking, a lot of wisdom comes from you, a lot of experience that's quite articulate. And I just wanted to say that. I don't know if anyone said that to you before. And it could be. What's that?
I have noticed it. I have noticed the same thing.
With Graham?
Yeah. To offer.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that because many people, we're all so impatient, really. And there you are, you're back moving. This is good. We're all so impatient, and people could interpret that as that you've got nothing to say. But all I wanted to say was that I've noticed that you've got a lot to say. Yeah, I'm just encouraging you to keep speaking, because if we don't get a chance to speak and say what's really important to us, or what's going on, or what we think, or what we feel, it can lead to more self-isolation. You know, it can lead to creating a bubble for ourselves that we just live in, and we feel more alone. What's that?
It affects the psyche.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And of course, that would play into, if you've got vulnerabilities to addiction, that'll play into that as well. So, you know, anyway, I just wanted to say that, Graham. So I just it's important. So in relation then to psyche, and why did I even put that word on that thing to do with mindfulness? So in my 20s, and this is like 40 years ago, I became interested, and I realized I'm hoping to actually start writing a book, a children's book aimed at understanding these really non-understandable things in life. But I think I've been a scientist my whole life, from a very early age, about 9 years old, or maybe even before. So what I mean by that is, and that is an aspect of mindfulness called curiosity, a childlike curiosity in things. Even though everyone else is saying that's uncomfortable, don't touch that, don't talk about that, don't think about that, don't investigate that, don't entertain any feelings around that. Hopefully that part of me is still alive and well, a childlike curiosity to ask things. Anyway, so in that regards, in this domain of the psyche, I did start asking questions, and I came across things and people like Carl Jung and the old religions and all of that sort of stuff, mythology. So then yesterday I looked up psyche on the internet, and good old Wikipedia, which is pretty good. It's not the be-all and end-all of everything, but it's a voluntary thing, and people write things, and particularly in older historical contexts of myths and all that, because you can't just put your own opinions up there, because there's a lot of things written about it. The psyche comes up. So I just wanted to start the story, because this topic, dare I say, is so pregnant with life and meanings that you can just hear a couple of words and it'll send you off. A years, a lifetime. So another caveat just to watch out for. I'm just going to read this out. Cupid and Psyche, they're linked in together. And there's the segue. You said love. Cupid and Psyche is a story originally from written around the 2nd century AD by a Roman whose name is very difficult to actually pronounce. So it's a text. The text is called The Sacred Ass, like a donkey. The tale concerns the overcoming of obstacles to love between Psyche, and then in brackets, soul or breath of life. They're some of the things that psyche means. Psyche has been, since this time of the Greeks, this is from the Greeks as well, has been reinterpreted in many ways, and I will go through that in these next couple of classes. But here it is straight from Greek mythology. A tale concerns the overcoming of obstacles to love between Psyche, soul or breath of life, and Cupid. Cupid personifies amor, love, or eros. Any of those terms, of course, can be interpreted personally by you and me and everyone else on this planet, according to how you want to interpret it. But so it's the overcoming of obstacles. I thought that was so sweet, so cute. To love between Cupid and Psyche, and their ultimate union in a sacred marriage. giving birth to immortality. Now, that one paragraph that just been written there, I put that extra bit in there, giving birth to immortality, because that's part of the story. I'm not going to go into the story. If you're interested in the story, read it yourself. It's quite long and involved and all of that. But I was going to ask everyone, what does the notion of immortality actually mean? Because I realize that we use words. Jordan Peterson, famous clinical psychologist, says, be precise in your speech. And I heard him say that a couple of years ago. And since then, I have been constantly referring to a dictionary when I come up against the word, and particularly if I have to write it or I have to present it in a class like this, I want to bloody well know what's the context. What the hell does even immortality mean? Where does that come from? Who dreamt up that idea? What is it? You know, that's just what I'm trying to say. So all of this is designed to get us to reflect upon notions that we've had or beliefs, as you've mentioned quite a bit there, and in our life, and perhaps convert them into something we know even, you know, move from just believing something to, well, hang on, where did that even come from? Beliefs originate from somewhere. You know, they don't pop out of thin air. They usually evolve or come out from what we've heard, experiences in our life, of course, our parents, and even from mythology right now, just talking about that, you know, someone's notion of something 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago. So it's useful. So again, it might sound like, oh no, Hart's giving me more bloody homework to do, think about things. But I mean, that's why we're here. You know, we've got, you know, the bloody virus has given us so much more time. And not only that, we're here. So it's a really good opportunity. And as I was saying, it can help maybe bring some end to a cycle that is like causing us some grief. Here's another aspect of psyche from the same story, from mythology. The last trial of Venus, mythology in the Greek times and the Roman times, mythology refers to, they projected a lot of their feelings and understandings and behaviors of themselves as human beings outside of themselves. And outside, they did that by projecting all this stuff onto the gods. Zeus, Venus, Psyche, they all became gods and immortalized in their own way in the mythology of the writings of the Greek. So you'll see as we go down here, we have now adapted and done, we do it in another way. We also still project these days because we can't dissect or understand the workings of ourselves sometimes, so it's more helpful to us to put these things outside of ourselves and try to understand ourselves through these myths, through these stories, through films and movies and all that sort of stuff. So here's the thing, psyche and the underworld. Anyone heard of that term?
Are you talking about like the darker side of?
Yeah, something like that. That could be one way. Have you heard of it, Graham? The underworld?
Not really.
Not really. Think of your worst nightmare that you've had recently. That's coming from the underworld, your underworld. And sometimes, anyway, we'll go into that. But there's all So this is part of the story of Psyche. Psyche in the underworld. She gets banished in the story to the underworld. It's really interesting. The trial of Venus. Venus was another goddess, obviously, and she was a little bit jealous of Psyche because Psyche was very beautiful, and particularly in her relationship with Eros or Cupid. So the last trial of Venus imposes on Psyche is a quest to the underworld itself. So the underworld in this sense isn't a punishment to stay in hell. The underworld, don't confuse the underworld as hell, although it can seem like hell, obviously, meaning suffering, it's weird, I don't get it, all of that stuff. But throughout a lot of mythology, and then particularly in relation to the more modern, in the last 100 years, understanding of the psyche, particularly earlier on with Freud and Jung and even some of the more modern day psychoanalysts, they're not afraid to talk about our dark side. And in actual fact, Jordan Peterson, who I was quoting before, who's currently got a huge following, he's on the internet, he's been a lecturer at the university, he also is not afraid to talk about the underworld. And when and the underworld obviously incorporates things like evil and malevolence and those aspects. And I guess the reason why even anyone would want to talk about these things is to highlight the uncomfortable possibility that these things that we've been projecting onto gods and the underworld and mythology for centuries also still have remnants and exist within us.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. And of course, these things come out when there's catastrophic things that happen, like world wars and anarchy and, you know, exiling and persecution of the Jews during the World War. These things come out and manifest themselves through people's psyche and then through their behavior. And we look at those things, or we can look at those things and say to ourselves, oh my God, I'm glad that's not me. Well, there's some notion that even having conversations like this and looking at things like the psyche entertains the possibility that there still may be remnants and seeds of these forces, uncomfortable forces. And in actual fact, next week, I'm not going to go into it today. I don't know. Can you see that book? Is that
Which
visible?
book behind you? You mean the curse? Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about.
Can you see that?
The War of Good in Addiction.
The,
Yes.
The War of the Gods.
Gods in Addiction.
Of addiction. Now that's written by modern day Jungian analysts, and I'm going to read out, not today, a couple of paragraphs from that describe the seeds and the essence of what I'm just talking about then, but also a different slant on the notion of addiction and how it relates to the psyche and how it relates to the modern, the modern, I'm meaning modern as in the last 100 years. This person who wrote this, David Schoen, is a Jungian analyst, and I mentioned to Graham a couple of weeks back that Jung was instrumental in getting Bill W. to set up AA. They knew each other. They knew each other well, so that all ties in. There's a theme in that weaves its way through, and as well as the understanding of the 12 steps. This man wrote this book in relation to a deeper aspect of the psyche, and hopefully it can help. But also the power. Look, here's the thing. Why partly why I put the word psyche up there again on that mandala is because to help acquaint us with these forces that are within us that can completely knock us on our ass, sometimes completely unexpectedly. So I'm not trying to gloss it over. On the contrary, I'm trying to help make us aware, including myself, and sometimes it's a lifetime endeavor, that we need to be aware of these things. And it's part of our vulnerability, but it's also part of our makeup, our core structure, our core aspects of our psyche, our consciousness.
Yeah.
That there are things that we are vulnerable to. And I think, and Graham can quote me on this, there are, as part of the steps, they make that, one of the steps makes that completely obvious, whether it's the first or the second one, Graham could say it, in regards to our vulnerability to these forces that appear and seem way stronger than we are to be able to resist them. Battery going to go flat?
No.
Was that an alarm? I think
A loop. whatever that is.
What's that?
I don't know what that
I don't
is.
know. I think
So
they're messages.
Oh, they look
Oh,
like
that's right.
messages.
It's Ollie's computer. I thought he's probably put a timer on there so as to shut me up at the right time. It is actually 10:31. So good on you, Ollie. I like that. Anyway, so just talking about that, why don't we leave that today, unless someone wants to say something just before we finish? Because as you can tell, this is a huge subject, but an important subject. And thank you, Anne, for choosing it. And I know the full import of your actually choosing it to yourself, you won't even realize until we've finished talking about all these aspects, which is good.
Yeah.
And I hope that Graham can get something out of this as well. So, all right. Any questions or any follow-up? Anyone triggered?
No.
Buttons and triggers are part of the psyche. They're inbuilt. You can't see them, but they're there. So it's just fascinating. And anything you want to say? Are you good for today?
No, I might just stay back and have a word with you if that's all right.
That's fine. That's fine. I can only stay for 5 minutes because I actually have an online medical consultation for myself at 1:45 with my doctor friend. But yeah, that's fine. Stay behind. Are we going to kick Graham out now? Tell him to bugger off?
Yeah. I'll wrap up. See you on Friday.
See you on Friday, Graham. Thanks so much for coming. Good on you. Anne, go. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I just thought, like when you were just talking about the what was it? The Underworld.
Yeah.
The Underworld. So I perceive that as being things that aren't pleasant. Okay, and because I really strongly feel that I ended up in that situation prior to coming in here because there was something that I haven't learned or accepted.
That's
or
exactly
come
right.
to understand.
I only read the first. Let me just finish that paragraph because then that'll answer your question that you're actually, because the key thing there is that, like I said, going to the underworld is not necessarily a punishment. It's actually designed to bring back a prize. It's a quest.
It's
to bring back something that you haven't got, that you need to retrieve to get. And that's definitely within the myth. Let me just say. So the last trial of Venus imposes on Psyche is a quest to the underworld itself. She is to take a box and obtain in it a dose of the beauty of Proserpina, queen of the underworld. Venus claims her own beauty has faded through tending once again to despair, tending to her ailing son, and she needs this remedy in order to attend the theatre of the gods. When you hear all this sort of stuff, and by the way, this is also true in our dreams. Dreams are messages from the underworld or plays of the underworld playing out in your psyche. It's not all about the underworld, but it is some of that. So when you hear about all these characters like Venus and her ailing son and Proserpina and Psyche herself, they're aspects, you might say, of yourself, as I've mentioned before, sort of projections of yourself. So it's just a drama that plays out with aspects, the characters of your dream, let's just say. And once again, despairing of her task, Psyche climbs a tower, planning to throw herself off. She's just had enough of it all. The tower, however, suddenly breaks into speech and advises her to travel to this place in Greece and to seek out within that place another place where she will find the entrance to the underworld. The tower offers instructions for navigating the underworld. And it goes on and on and on. So she's on a quest.
Yes, and the reason that I mention that is because I realised when I came in that, and I never had this before, even with my own family, which is quite odd because I know them intimately, my family, but the last family that I was with before I came in here, and like and I loved this family, you know, even though they weren't functioning well, and they, you know, people would class as dysfunction, extreme dysfunction. But having intimately known them prior to being exposed to such dysfunction, so, you know, because people put on a bit of a front before they let their guard down, and you get to see who they really are. So, but prior to seeing all that stuff, I got to know them on a personal, on an intimate level. And when I came in here, and like, don't get me wrong, I have a bit of a battle going on at the moment because I'm trying to let go, and not let go because they're not good enough, but they're not good for, it's not good for my personal development. So therefore I'm letting it go because they're not on the same path as I am. We're wanting to get well. So we're different. We're in different, we're just in different places, you know. So,
Yep.
And I believe that if you're with someone who's not going to grow with you, then eventually you're going to grow apart. And we were already starting to grow apart because that wasn't happening. But having been intimate with this family, and in particular my ex-partner, and now being here and discovering the root of his issues, like I'm having a bit of a more understanding of what's going on with him. And although it still is painful for me, it's that I'm having this battle of I can't remain in this space where I'm angry when I understand I understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. However, because it's happened to me, there's hurt there. So
of course, yeah.
I think the swing from feeling
Switching, yeah, oscillating in between. Don't be so quick to judge or stop your anger. Yeah, you can use that as a force, as a momentum, as an energy source to help you figure out yourself. So you can use the anger that you might be experiencing from something on the outside, like your ex-partner, but use it. You may not even be ready to let go and completely forgive. Who knows? I don't know, but that's quite possible. But instead of that, use it to, if that works for you, use it to, really get to go deeper into the aspect. Take a serious, as a quote from one of the, as a quote.
Sorry, someone's calling him.
Oh, someone's calling him. I have to go anyway. But take it as a quote. One of the quotes from the 12 steps is to take a thorough moral inventory of ourselves in relation to what we've done in our life. That takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of commitment. And you can do it through writing, because if you're able to and you feel comfortable in writing, writing is different from thinking. In some ways, you can get your thoughts out on paper, but then you get to they're reflected back to you immediately. Otherwise, you have to wait for situations like this, where you have people like myself and those around you who will reflect back to you your thoughts because you're speaking it out. But that doesn't happen all the time. But you have access to writing virtually 24/7.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, it's powerful as well. And and by the way, when you start writing, do not filter, do not edit.
No, I
Doesn't matter if it sounds like shit and bullshit, whatever. Just get it out.
I will. Thank you, Hart.
I better go. See you on Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries. Have a good day.
Thank you, and tell Ollie thanks for setting it up for us.
No problem.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.